talking about what Jesus says we should do in tough times. And specifically, we're talking about what Jesus says about worry. Um, in this passage here in Matthew 6, it's verses 24 through, 25 through 34. It's part of the Sermon on the Mount. And uh, this particular passage, every word of it, if you've got a red letter Bible, every word of this is in red, which means it's Jesus speaking, um, not somebody recycling what Jesus spoke. It's actually Jesus speaking. And he's teaching about worry. And so we'll just start in verse 25. Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not the is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes?" So there's right there right away he's telling us there's more to life than what we recognize. And of course, we've come to recognize a lot about life. I mean, we have our financial struggles, we have our emotional struggles, our mental struggles, our relationship struggles. We go through a lot of things, and we go through too many of those things at once. It could lead to depression. And Jesus is telling us here right in his opening statement about this topic, not to worry, because the worry is what leads to the depression thoughts. Of course, self-image is another thing we tend to worry about. And that's where he says, don't worry about your body or what you wear. He doesn't want us to be concerned with what other people think of our self-image as far as our appearance goes. And that's what today's society is drawn us to, is worrying about our physical self-image. And God's telling us, don't worry about your physical self-image. And he tells us, don't worry about don't stress over finances. He's basically telling us what we need, he'll provide. So he says, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. So right there, that's verse 26. We're only 2 verses into this, and he's telling us, don't worry about your financial needs. Don't worry about whether you're going to eat or have something to drink. Um, God will provide what you need. He does it for the birds, and they do no work to obtain it. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't work to obtain what we need. That's just telling us we shouldn't worry about obtaining what we need. God will provide. And I can tell you from personal experience, some people know in my social circle, and a few people that are in my social circle are about to find out. There was quite a long stretch of time my family was homeless, and we were living in a tent out of the back of a pickup truck that we couldn't drive over 60 mile an hour. Now, in Florida, that's a problem if you got to go somewhere, because once you get out of the city limits, the speed minimum is 60 mile an hour. So, but we bounced around from campground to campground. Every week or 2 weeks we had to move. I did what work I could, which wasn't a whole lot. Did a couple small tax-paying jobs, which didn't provide enough to get us on our feet. Occasionally, it provided enough for us to get out of the tent and into a hotel room for a few days or a week or whatever. But we stressed a lot about everything, and God managed to provide for us. We managed to have fuel in the truck to get from one place to another. We managed to have, if we were in a camping situation, we managed to have firewood to stay warm and cook. We were made aware of several food pantries, and through some of those food pantries, we were made aware of other resources. So, I can tell you from personal experience, going through the toughest time that anybody can go through while being out in society, about the toughest thing anybody can go through. And I can tell you from experience, God does provide. Um, things were pretty dismal. Um, and what had happened is, the plans we had when we moved down here to Florida fell through and left us in a tough situation. But we always managed to survive. And when I managed to find work, we managed to be able to indulge in a carry out pizza or go get burgers from a restaurant or something. Um, but, we always had what was required to survive. So, you shouldn't worry about those types of things. It will be provided. You may have to do a little research, a little homework, but those things will be provided, and you'll be made aware of those things. Okay, so we continue on. Still in verse 36. Are you not much more? Are you not much more valuable than they? So, if he's going to provide for the birds who do nothing to obtain their food, I mean, certain species of birds, yeah, they'll pluck a nightcrawler or earthworm, whatever you want to call it, out of the ground every now and then. Some birds actually hunt, uh, but in general, birds don't do anything but fly around, sit on wires, sit up in a tree, sing pretty, look pretty, something. And God values them enough to provide for them. And Jesus is reminding us that we humans are more valuable to God than those birds are. So if those birds are that valuable, you can trust that if a bird is valuable enough for God to provide for his needs, God will provide for your needs. Um, so, as far as things associated with finances, um, you may find yourself in a tough situation every now and then, but he's not going to let you, uh, there's really no way to put it. He's not going to let you die just because you're in a tough financial situation. He'll provide what is required to keep you going. He'll provide the resources you need to get back on your feet. So, can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? So, it does us no good to worry about things. It doesn't add to our life at all. That's basically what Jesus is saying with that question. And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers in the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. So, even King Solomon wasn't dressed what would be considered appropriate for a leader, a ruler, or a king in his time. But even the flowers in the field are as beautiful as they should be. That's what he's telling us. Even the flowers in the field are as beautiful as they should be. So don't don't worry about how you appear to others physically. God says you're as beautiful as you should be. Okay. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow, is thrown into today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, it will much more clothe you of little faith. So even though you may be in a situation where you might know about God, and you might even believe in God. You might be in a situation where you don't know about God, or you know about God, but you decide you don't believe in it. There's you could even be what uh, Kyle Idleman calls and not a fan. You may even be a creaster. You may be one of those believers that the only time you attend a worship service is for special occasions and holidays. A christening, a baptism, Christmas, Easter, Some go to, sometimes there'll be a special service for Thanksgiving that people will go to. Any special service you'll go to, but not the weekly stuff. You accept God was born of a virgin as a baby. Excuse me. Say God is, Jesus was fully God, fully man. Jesus was born as a virgin as a baby. You accept that. You accept the traditions associated with it, even if they're not Christian traditions. You accept those traditions, and then you accept that he he grew up. He had a ministry. He was persecuted and eventually beaten and died on the cross for your sins. And some may even take it far enough to believe that he was raised from the dead. As a matter of fact, if you're celebrating Easter, you do. I got to say you do. And you accept the traditions associated with that, Christian or not. But there's nothing substantial in between Christmas. There's nothing substantial for you in between birth and death, or birth and resurrection and ascension. There's nothing substantial there for you. And Jesus is telling you during that time that the creatures don't want, what's the word I want to find? They don't want to admit exist, or maybe don't even know. Jesus is telling us during that time that there's more to it. He's telling us right now during that time. So there's more to Jesus than born of a virgin, died on a cross, resurrected, ascended to heaven. There's more to Jesus than that. And he taught us. He taught us a lot. And here he's telling us, even if you fall into that creature group, God's going to take care of you. God thinks you're as beautiful as you should be, no matter what you think of yourself, no matter what others think of you. So do not worry, saying, "What shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear?" He doesn't want you to worry about those things. He doesn't want you to worry about the small stuff. Well, of course, what you're going to eat and what you're going to drink, that's vital to life. But to God, that's small stuff, because God's going to provide it for you. He doesn't want you to worry about the small stuff. He doesn't want you to worry about a failed relationship, or a lost love, or the death of a loved one, or your financial struggles. He doesn't want you to worry. To him, that's all small stuff. He doesn't want you to worry about that. So he goes on in verse 32. He says, "The pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them." So we don't have to chase after these things. We don't have to. We don't have to worry about what God considers the small stuff. He knows what we need. He knows what we desire, and He knows what's required. Um, you've gone through. Maybe you had a really good relationship, or you thought it was a really good relationship with someone, and all of a sudden it ended, and now you're doubting your own self worth relationship wise. God's telling you, don't worry about that. Well, Jesus, through it's easy to make that jump. Jesus is telling us, don't worry about those things. God already knows what we're going through. He already knows what we need in those situations, and He's going to provide it. He says, what you need to do when you go through your hard times, seek first His kingdom. Now that would be the kingdom of God, and His righteousness, the righteousness of God. And all things will be given to you as well. So let's read that again without my explanation. It says, but seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all those things will be given to you as well. You don't know what to do in a situation? The answer is a lot of people believe, and I'm one of them. The heaven is above. Jesus is telling us, you know, back that a little bit. The king, the common belief is the kingdom of heaven is above, over our heads, beyond the scope of our visual range and imagination. That's where the power of God is. And Jesus is telling us, you don't know the answer in a situation, ask the Father, ask God, pray. Prayer is how you get to God. Prayer is how God hears you. The association we can make is, we got a problem. We don't know what to do. We pick up our phone. We scroll around in our phone. We find the Google search bar. We type in what our problem is, and we hit enter, and boom, Google gives us 10,000 answers. One of them might be right. It's an exaggeration there, but prayer is that cell phone to God. Prayer is God's Google search engine. And that's what Jesus is telling us by saying, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. You don't know what to do? Pick up your spiritual cell phone. You're on your knees, however you do it. Kneel at your bed, fold your hands, look up into the skies, whatever your method of prayer is. Pick up that spiritual cell phone and make a call. Say, hey, God, I'm going through this situation. I don't know what to do. Help me out. And then just shut up and listen. That's what you need to do. God knows your problem. He's just waiting on you to ask for him to help you with. So you make a call and say, look, God, I'm going through this. I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I'm struggling with this. How do I find peace with it? Help me out. And then remain in your prayer and wait for a response. That's something that we tend to not do in society these days. I see it all the time, especially with 4 of these 5 kids. The 5th one, I can't quite understand what she's saying half the time. So most of our conversations, most of my conversation with her, some kind of mumbling at me going, huh? What? I have no clue what she just thought she said. That's a dangerous situation too. My oldest daughter, I had her for a visit one time. This is after her mom and I separated. I had her for a visit one time, and we were leaving the local Walmart, and she's just rambling on in the back seat, and I'm acknowledging her. Yeah, okay, cool, all right, yeah, sure. Well, we got to a point where all of a sudden she got quiet. She had said something, I acknowledged her. Yeah. Next thing out of her mouth, plain as day, the plainest thing she said that whole conversation, whatever she was talking about, was "Thank you, Daddy." 20 some odd years later, I still don't know what that conversation was about. But that I was a dirt road there. But these kids here, they're our kids, especially our teenage kids, and I'm not just talking about mine. Our teenage kids are a good example of how we operate in society. I mean, we send them to school, they learn societal things, they learn the basics of life beyond what we can teach them, and then they start developing these habits. And these kids have already developed it. They'll ask a question, and before you even get a chance to open your mouth, they've asked another question and another question and another question. And now all of a sudden they're arguing their point against your point, and they don't even know what your point is. And that's how we operate in society. We don't tend to take the time to wait for the answer. We formulate the answer in our own minds through the questions we ask. How would we ask somebody? Here's a good one, because both answers is right. We ask somebody what's 1 plus 1. What was 2 plus 2? Was 3 plus 3? Was 4 plus 4? And then our brain processes back to 1 plus 1. Oh, well, that's 2. But here's the problem. They're not talking about math. So the answer is actually 3. But they've already argued their own point and formulated their own answer in their own head about 2 plus 2, 1 plus 1 equals 2. But they weren't talking about a math question to begin with. They were talking about birds and the bees is the polite way to say it. And somehow the question of what's 1 plus 1 worked its way into the conversation, and the proper answer in that context would have been 3. But then after they interjected that question into the conversation, their mind went to math, and they come up through a process of elimination. They come up with the answers too when they ask you that question. So that they come up with an answer for themselves based on a mathematical equation, but they asked you that question in the context of the birds and the bees. So they came up with the right answer mathematically, but they didn't come up with the right answer in the terms of context. And we got to be careful not to do that with God. When we go to God in prayer and we're presenting a problem to Him, and it's one thing we go to God to pray and ask Him for, His help for someone or something, and healing and guidance and that kind of thing. For someone else, that's okay. But when we go to God in prayer for ourselves, because we've got a problem and we need an answer to that problem, we can't let our society habits get in the way. We can't say, look, God, here's the problem. This is what I'm going through. I don't know how to handle it. I'm struggling with it. I need guidance, and shut Him off like we tend to do in society. We got to present that question to Him and then just stop and listen. Like I said in the illustration when I was actually making a phone call. Ask Him the question, present your case, and then shut up and listen. Stay in that prayer meditation until you feel like you've received an answer. And He may not answer you directly. You may be in that prayer situation and you present, like I did with this message today. I got a lot of people in my social groups that seem to be going through issues that are causing them to come off as being depressed. How should I address this? He didn't say, well, this is what you need to say to them. You need to get behind the pulpit. You need to turn on that camera. You need to go live. And you need to say these exact words. No. Matter of fact, this scripture right here that we just read is not even one of the ones I researched. I came back behind this pulpit today with the intent of going ahead with not a fan. I came back here with the intent of going ahead with this part 2 because I hadn't managed to assemble this message. And I opened up my Bible to the scriptures that I need to use for part 2 of Not a Fan. And right beside those scriptures is God teaches about worry. So, when I presented that question to him, when I said, look, I got people that I know of that seem to be going through a depression situation. How should I address the situation? How should I address that? And then thought coming into my mind, well, look it up. See what you can find. That was the first answer. But I got the final answer when I came and stood right here, right behind this pulpit. And I opened up my Bible here to do a different message. That's when I got the final answer. Because the final, the message, and I could actually go ahead and go through it, the scriptures anyway, for the message I intended to do. Those scriptures I had bookmarked. I opened up my Bible, and those scriptures were Jesus teaches about asking, seeking, and knocking. next page over. And when I say next page over, I'm talking about those scriptures were in my Bible were on page 2009, and the scriptures I just read to you are on page 2008. When I look at these scriptures, that's what I'm saying. Right on this page is the scriptures I want to use. There's today's scriptures. Sometimes those answers come that way. Sometimes they don't come in the form of an articulated thought. Sometimes they come in the form of, hey, I didn't even recognize that before, but right there's the answer to what the question. Yeah. We'll go back here to first. Let's finish what we were talking about. It says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Don't worry about tomorrow today. Live in today. Deal with today. When tomorrow comes, you'll do the same thing. You'll live in tomorrow. You'll deal with tomorrow. So, to give a contextual, tangible example, today's Wednesday. Jesus is telling us, okay, today's Wednesday. Live for Wednesday. Tomorrow, live for Thursday. The next day, live for Friday, and so on, so on, so on. Don't worry Wednesday about Thursday. Don't worry Thursday about Friday. But I said we could take a look at the scriptures I wanted to take a look at for the not a fan message. So we go back to verse 33, where Jesus says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Okay? So Jesus told us to seek God's kingdom and seek God's righteousness. So we jump over to chapter 7, verses 7 through, we're going to go ahead and go to 12. And I'm just going to read through it real quick. But remember, Jesus in chapter 6, verse 33, reminding y'all it was Matthew. He said, seek first the kingdom of God and the righteousness of God, and all things will be given to you. It says, so we go to chapter 7, verse 7, and Jesus is teaching about asking, seeking, and knocking. So he's teaching about what he just said in chapter 6. It says, Jesus says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give them a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't give, our kid wants a fish sandwich. We're not going to give him a snake full of rocks. God's not even, we ask God for a fish sandwich. It may not be a filet of fish sandwich from McDonald's. It may not come in the form of a store-bought bun or store-bought loaf of bread and fresh fish from the seafood department or frozen fish out of the freezer department. It may not come in any of those forms. It may come in the form of, we go home, we dig up a recipe, and we put all the ingredients together to bake a loaf of bread. And while we're waiting on that bread to rise, we go down into the lake. And there's the lake right down the road from me. We go down into the lake, we get out our fishing pole, we bait up our hook, we throw it in the water, we catch a fish or two and bring them home. Put that loaf of bread in the oven. While the bread's cooked, baking, we're cleaning that fish, and we're frying that fish up, deep frying it, baking it, whatever it is we want to do to cook that fish up. And then we pull our bread out, we slice off a couple slices, and we put our newly cooked fish fillets from the fish that we just caught on top of that bread. And we put our toppings on it and our condiments. That may be how God provides that fish sandwich. We may have to work at it. I may not just say, hey, do you want a fish sandwich? Here's your McDonald's filet of fish. You know, God's not McDonald's. You're not going to walk up to God and say, hey, yeah, give me a filet of fish meal. Put extra lettuce, tomato, put light on the tartar sauce, no cheese. You know, however you like your sandwich. Uh, give me them no salt fries. I want them fresh, and a large drink. If you do that to God, he's probably not going to respond. But if you walk up to God and say, "Look, I know you can provide it for me. I've run out of options. I don't know what to do, but I'm really hungry. I'd like a fish sandwich, maybe some French fries, and a drink." I say, God's not going to reach over the counter and say, "Well, here's your filet of fish meal. That'll be what is it, 9 something now? I don't know. Just guessing." No, he's going to say, "Okay, well, this lady over here, she bakes really good bread. And this guy right here, he's a good fisherman. You go talk to this lady, get you some bread. You go talk to this guy and get you a couple of fish, and then you go home and make your fish sandwich." God just provided for you. He provided what you needed because you told him, I don't know how to obtain it. You know, I've run out of options. You know, don't know how to fish, don't know how to bake, but I'd really like a fish sandwich. God says, "Well, here's the answer to that. This lady, she bakes bread. Get a loaf of bread from her. This guy's a fisherman. Go get a couple of fish from him. You go home and make you a fish sandwich." He provided that fish sandwich you needed by providing you resources you couldn't find. Okay, so continuing on, verse 11 of chapter 7. If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? That's pretty much what we just talked about. Um, it says, though you are evil. Well, one thing that's got to be understood is when Jesus says this, he's not necessarily saying we're evil. He's saying that due to original sin, due to free will, even Christians, even me standing behind this pulpit, even when I go to my home church, the pastor there, we're all sinners. Some of us saved by grace. That's what Jesus means by though you are evil. And he says, you know, if we would give our child a loaf of bread and a fish so he can make a fish sandwich and not give him a rock, a snake, and a rock to beat it on when he wants fish and bread, then why wouldn't we count on God to do that for us? Why wouldn't we count on going to God and saying, "Look, I don't know how to bake bread and I can't fish, but I want a fish sandwich"? Why would we expect God to say, "Well, you know, that guy all the way back here in the back row, he's a stonemason. We'll get a rock from him"? And little country boy over there is always running around in the woods and tends to come to church dirty because he just come out of the woods. I bet you he's got some wild game over there. You may need that rock to kill that snake or that bird or that rabbit or whatever it is. But wait a minute, I said I'd like some bread and fish because I'd like a fish sandwich. Doesn't sound like something God would do to them. what you would more expect is, hey, God, I don't have any bread. Don't know how to bake bread. I don't have any fish. I'm not a fisherman. But I really got an hanker for a fish sandwich. Well, we'd expect God to say, well, that lady right there makes some really good bread. Go get some bread from her. And that guy right there, he's a really good fisherman. Go get a fish from him. And then go home and make your fish sandwich. That's what we would expect. You know, the little boy come to Jesus generally spoke directly to men. There's usually families involved. Jesus directly spoke to men. So this little boy goes to his dad. He says, hey, Dad, Mom's not around. She's off doing whatever. Maybe she's out feeding the cows or whatever. Who knows what mothers did in those days? You know, Mom's busy. I'm hungry. I'd like a fish sandwich for lunch. Dad's not going to give him a rock and some live animal that he's got to kill with a rock and call it a fish sandwich. You know, Dad's going to say, well, I know Mom's got some bread that stored up in the storage area. I don't know what they call it those days. And he, my buddy down here, he's been out fishing all day. Maybe he's got a fish. So why don't you go down and talk to him, see if he's got a fish you can have for lunch, and then go get some of that bread your mom's got stored away and make you a fish sandwich. That's what we expect Dad to do. Why wouldn't we expect God to do the same thing? Okay. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law of the prophets. The law and the prophets. That was a little confusing, but you know, we talk about the golden rule all the time. Do unto others what you would have them do to you. Kind of funny how, and this isn't the only place that Jesus or one of his disciples says this, but it's kind of funny that he worked that one into ask, seek, and knock. So, you know, you're going through. This is what a lot of people that I'm saying are going through. You know, you're going through a financial struggle, or you're going through a relationship struggle. You're doubting your own self worth, or you're doubting your values to society, and you've exploited every resource known to you to meet that financial need. You've gone through every self affirmation that you know to reach that feeling of being valuable to others again because of that lost relationship. So you've done your seeking. Now you need to find you a nice quiet place and to pray. When you start that prayer, the moment you say, "Dear God," now you're knocking. And then you continue on and you ask. So the the order that this is written is a little off. That's just the way it was addressed. You know, you seek, then you go knock on the door. You go knock, you go pray. So you seek by doing what you know. You knock by going to prayer, and then you ask by praying. And in the praying, you're continuing your seeking. Ask, seek, knock. Seek first his kingdom and righteousness, and all these things will be given to you.